What's up, everyone? How's it going? It's Carpo here, coming at you from the bus. Of course, it's a nice, quiet spot where I can make videos, and I decided to just keep making YouTube videos. You know, I took a little break there, kind of after my other channel had those issues, and I thought, you know, the reason why I make videos is to share information with people, and with hopes of opening up a dialogue or a discussion about those subjects. And I love the responses that I get. And so, in a nutshell, YouTube somewhat keeps me sane in an insane world. This video is about more or less how I don't feel like I fit in anywhere, and how I've become well aware over the decades that I'm not alone in that, and that when we're young, when we are in our teens and 20s, we tend to think that we're special, we're eccentric. It's where the whole snowflake analogy comes from. And so there's an older generation saying you're not a special snowflake, and then some people saying, oh, but you are, you're special and unique. And I think that I can see where both sides have their validity, in the sense that you can, yes, we're all unique, yes, we're all different, and we all have our own interests, but we also all follow basic patterns that have been carried through our evolution. And we are creatures that were not meant to be doing the things that we're doing. Let's just put it that way. Now, I'm going to give you an example. Like, I'm getting ready to go camping, and we're leaving tomorrow, so I'm getting everything ready here. It's going to be the first real woods camping trip in the bus. And it got me thinking about how an article or some paper I read years ago about how camping in the in the West is something that's relatively new. People didn't go camping 200 years ago. They tried to find cities to get away from the wild, if you will. Now that we've had enough of it, so to speak, and this is generalizing and consolidating the idea, but basically we've lived in isolation for a long time in small communities. Now that we've moved into larger cities, we feel like we're lacking that natural beauty that we once had. And it's somewhat subconscious, but it's also conscious, the idea that we know that when we go to the woods, we feel great. So, this is not universal, though. And that's the one thing I really have learned over the years. Some people just do not like the woods. I've heard, celebrities, I can't remember specifically, it just popped into my head, talking, there was like a talk show one time, and the guy who's been interviewed says, yeah, the woods, I don't understand why people go out there. Ooh, gross, there's bugs and, it's dirty. And I thought, this is really the mentality of a lot of people. Well, that's fine, so be it, I believe that that's a detrimental point of view, because we need to have a little bit of that in our lives, but we've become so shallow because of celebrity status, because of the consumer society that we've become, that really all that matters is just go, 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 day to day, and we're constantly reinforced and told that that's all that matters, is just stuff. And so, anyhow, when I thought about going camping and I started thinking about these things, I thought about why do I enjoy the woods so much? What is it about getting away for a few days that really recharges you? Because I didn't really go on any camping trips last year. I went to Soak, a few weeks ago, and that was great, but that was an event, a festival with a lot of people and a lot of action. I haven't had any peace and quiet and solitude under the stars in a lot of years, it seems like. Well, at least a couple years. We went out 2 years ago, we went to Symbiosis, and that was a crazy festival that was just overwhelming and nerve-wracking because of the trip and the drive, but I got to see the eclipse. And that was the beauty of it. I was willing to wade through all the chaos for that one moment, that 3-minute window where it was like, oh, and I'll never forget it, Well, you can get that beauty anytime. You can have these memorable, trips to waterfalls, to hot springs, mountain trips and treks and hikes. So for me, that's a way of kind of getting back to the basics. And also, at the same time, though, having gratitude for all the conveniences I have, because I'm not one of the guys who goes out into the woods and says, yeah, we need to just live off the land like what our ancestors did. In fact, the people who say that, who say we need to go back to just living off the land and Um, all I can say is that it's not likely to happen. In other words, we've been developing something else alongside our, use of tools, and that's intellect and thought and depth. And that's how we got into the situation that we're in right now. We have, we've created these lives where we're forced to look to the future. And looking to the future means that we have fears, and warranted fears, about our own mortality. So I hear the mailman coming, so I'm going to go and I'm going to pause this. I think I can pause it, and I'll be right back. So that was excellent. I'm glad I went out to the mailman, because it is a perfect addition to the video that I'm making here. I could tell when he drove by, he's the grumpy guy. And I've seen him just drive by because the car's parked, 12 feet from the mailbox instead of 15. Even though I was walking out to meet him, and he complained to my wife one day, "Oh, make sure you park your car ahead." And you can just tell with certain people that they're just stuck in the routine, this routine we don't want to be in, if you will. And so I just asked him, I was like, "Hey, how's it going today, man?" And he's like, "Same thing, same thing every day." And I'm like, "Yeah, but it's always a little different. It's what you make of it." And he's like, "What?" And I was like, it's always a little different, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, same thing every day." And he's a Indian guy, not Native American, but an actual Indian, I believe, or from somewhere over there. And he's got a pretty heavy accent. I can tell that, he just doesn't want to be where he's at. And who can blame him? But here's the thing. A lot of us don't want to be where we're at. A lot of us are stuck in situations where things are less than perfect. A lot of us feel like we don't belong in this fucked up reality that we've created as a society, especially in the West, surrounded by commercialism and sellouts and this idea that all that matters is wealth. I mean, it's not something that I felt like we were overcoming it, kind of, like as I was hoping, but I'm just viewing it through my own lens and the information I get. I don't really know what goes on in the minds of others. Nobody can. But now what I'm finding is that people are they're so frustrated with the way things are that they're willing to make decisions of like kind of throwing their hands up and saying, "Oh, well, screw it. Let's just let the system fail and fall apart," and ideas that it really can't. That what we've done as humans is we have developed so much, not just intelligence, but the Industrial Revolution isn't something that we can just go back on. The idea that even if a majority of, let's say, society is exterminated, that technology still exists, and those blueprints and that history is still there. It's not something we're going to get away from. So we're kind of trapped in this society. The idea is that in my mind, I just feel strongly and in my heart that if everyone in society took only what they needed and chose to not take from others or abuse others or be predatory towards people, whether it be physical or monetary or otherwise, which is not going to happen, of course. But if that were to happen, I believe that we do have enough resources to feed everyone. We have enough resources to clothe, to house, and to build functional facilities that people can live in, instead of these gaudy towers with these crazy architectural marvels, some which fail just because they're so beautiful that they're not really structurally, integral. But also that's a part of being a human, is that people also have the right to invent crazy things like that and to make wasteful things. And so that's kind of where I'm torn. It's like, on one hand, I want to escape this craziness and just be in my own reality and do my own thing on my own time. On the other hand, I realize that society as it is what gives me the ability to choose to do that. I don't have to go out and hunt and gather. I can just earn money and buy the food, which sucks and at the same time is beautiful. And so I guess what I'm saying is to try to embrace what we do have, to try to say, okay, how do I utilize the tools of society to better my life and at the same time better the lives of others, which is key. But also be able to escape from the commotion, the chaos, which for me, living in the Pacific Northwest, I'm 10 minutes from you know, the woods pretty much. It's like I can just drive out east, and in 15 minutes we're, you know, out in a national scenic, you know, area, and down in the gorge, and just I can just, you know, find a place to go out to a park or go camping. That to me is important. But even though I live in kind of the suburbs in a way, I don't know if it's considered the suburbs or not. I guess it would be the east side, you know. But I've always lived in the city. You know, I don't know what it's like to live in the country. I can't imagine the silence. In fact, I've seen studies where people who live in the country, who move to the city, have a hard time sleeping because of the noise. That sounds obvious. Well, people who live in the city who move out to the country have the same problem sleeping because it's too quiet. They're actually so used to that white noise that they have a hard time sleeping, so have to have fans or water running. And that's understandable, because that's really the point, is that we adapt to our environment, whatever it may be. And that's unfortunate in some ways, because it means that we've adapted ourselves to thinking that we need to join this rat race, that we need to climb the corporate ladder, or that we need to have more wealth or a bigger house. You know, if you have a room to sleep in, you have a kitchen to make food in, I mean, what do you really need? Well, our human minds are always telling us, more, more, more. I want some more stuff. Not for the sake of having it, but because it's a novelty. And that is pretty much, probably the biggest part of this discussion would be the novelty-seeking behavior that we have. That's the dopamine rush you hear about. And dopamine and serotonin, you know, norepinephrine, all these different, you know, adrenaline, whatever, all these different compounds, neurotransmitters in our bodies, they work in very complicated ways that are not well understood. But what we do understand is that novelty-seeking behavior, the idea of getting something new, it gives you a rush, so to speak. Well, the next time you're not going to fulfill that same rush from the same thing. You need more. And this is where the idea of greed comes in. This is where the idea of, you know, excess, you know, has burdened people. But the thing is, it's because we can have excess, and it wasn't always an option, you know. But without all these things, what do we really have? And that means we have to find ourselves. And often we hide from ourselves so much because we don't want to know what's there. And I think it's very important that we face it. Say, look, I'm a fucked up, flawed human being. I've made mistakes in my life. I'm doing my best. And I want to enjoy my life as much as possible without interfering with anyone else's life. And at the same time know that money's not going to bring me that joy. There is the argument that money up to a certain point does bring joy, and I agree with that 100%. And in fact, I think there was a study done, for what studies are worth, that something like anything over $100,000, or something like anything over $72,000 for an individual, or like $120,000 for a family, is considered excess and actually causes more anxiety over time. You start buying other properties, let's say. You know, I know people who are stressed out because their one property has a problem with it, and it's like, well, but you have that other property. You're making money off of it. It's just the burden of having more. You have to look out for more. So I'm glad I know that. I'm grateful that I've learned that, and that's why I think it's important to share. That it's not for lack of trying or lack of ability, that I'm not a millionaire. I guess if I really wanted to be, I could strive towards that and put myself in that mindset, because that's where you have to be to get there. You know, that's what I mean about adjusting yourself. You change gears. Right now I'm changing gears, so my life's been like, whoa, back up a little bit. It's like, I'm hoping it's the roller coaster climbing to the next drop, you know, and I hope it's a good drop, good rush, because, you know, life is short. There are people everywhere out there telling you what to do, how to live your life, what you should believe, what you should buy, what you shouldn't buy, what signature or what petition you should sign, and which ones you shouldn't sign, and who to listen to and who not to listen to. And I'm a very I'm not going to go as far as to say anti-authoritarian, but I'm very question-oriented when it comes to authority. When people think, you know, when a person claims to be an authority on a subject, which is generally, people flock to those who claim to know. And that's why I think that one of the biggest things that I always try to share with people when they're talking about, whether it's conspiracies, politics, religion, or whatnot, say, don't believe one person. Don't even believe a dozen people. really think about these things. And I've seen over and over how people just follow and follow and follow because it's just, is it just genetic? Is it the alpha male complex, which has been disputed for decades, Well, there's no alphas. Oh, yes, there are. We all know that there are some people who are very charismatic, and people will follow them off a cliff like lemmings. And I think that that's one of the biggest problems we have. I think that's why we're in this situation, because those who are the most influential are hired to influence people to buy their products, to vote for their candidates, to believe in their religions and make donations to their causes. And I feel like people need to think critically, but it's not our fault that we can't always think critically because we are immersed in bullshit. So that's what I got for today. Peace and love, everybody, and all that shit, Reality is more than surface deep, but you don't have to spend your whole life digging, and pondering. It's like you've got to live it. You've got to work. You've got to embrace the day-to-day, the moments. And I'm telling myself this as much as anyone else, because I've just been lately just find myself pacing sometimes, like, oh man, what could I do? What could I do? But at the same time, I put a lot of effort into like working when I am working on my projects and doing my things. So it's like, how do I focus that energy, and channel what I want to do into what I don't want to do? And that's why I'm stuck in society, because there's a lot of things I don't want to do. And the things that I do want to do aren't necessarily productive in society's standards. Anyway, take care, everyone. See you later.